Today's guest is a true legend and inspiration.
Oh, for sure.
I saw him shredding dirt jumps in Surrey, pulling Superman seat grabs.
Heel clickers.
Heel clickers. He was a pro rider. He rode for Mongoose.
He was a Mongoose superhero and GT rider.
That's OG. In 2017, January 6th, he suffered a spinal cord injury, became a quadriplegic. 100 days later, he walked out of rehab. Now he's here, shredding park. I hope he can do a heel clicker today. Here he is today on the show, our pal, Andrew Cho.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thank you. It is a treat to be here.
Thank you for being on the show, buddy.
Thanks,
Great to
guys.
have you
Thanks,
out here,
boys.
man.
Thank you.
On the bike, on the saddle.
How exciting is that?
How are you doing?
Amazing. I'm feeling really good. It's been a wild journey the last year. It's given me a lot of perspective, gratitude, and new purpose. And so it's been a really exciting year, and looking back at it now, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's really the best, worst experience of my life.
Let's take it all the way back to the roots. First bike, what was the bike that you got inspired to ride and start taking arms off, taking hands off, doing this?
One of these?
One of those.
You still got it.
I still got it.
Wow. So my first bike, it's got to be 1999 Rocky Mountain Soul. That was my first real mountain bike, and then shortly after, my friend bought a VHS.
Can you explain to the kids what a VHS is?
Back in the day, before we had on-demand services, we had to go to the store to buy these plastic cartridges that contained rolls of film because we don't have iTunes. Anyways, we bought one of these movies, and I realized that that was very close to home where all these movies were being made, and so that's kind of what inspired me to get into mountain biking.
What tricks were you doing?
One-handers, one-handed no-footers, those were a favorite of mine.
The 3-star.
3-star. Yeah. Then it was a no-footer, and then the evolution of a no-footer was a heel clicker. And then nothings, no-footed cans, one-handed no-footed cans, those were really one of my favorite tricks too.
What was it like in those days? Were you trying to be a pro rider?
Not really, but it's such a small community in Vancouver of riders, so it was so easy to eventually meet some of your heroes, because we were just exposed to such a high level of riding. I guess that's kind of how it all went. I got signed to my first team, Superheroes, and we were on Santa Cruz in 2004. Yeah, I got introduced to them, and we got started traveling, and before you knew it, I guess that's kind of it all happened.
Who were some of the first riders that inspired you to get better?
Well, I really looked up to a lot of my teammates. Gareth Dyer, Randy Spangler, Brian O, Aaron Peters. So those are the OG superheroes. So those guys obviously helped teach me a lot.
Who'd you have on your walls?
Wade Simmons and Richie Schley.
Are there any posters of you out there?
There have been some made. I don't know if people put them up. Probably in the recycling bin.
Oh no, we'll check eBay.
Yeah.
Gotta do some on eBay for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're a pro rider for a number of years. Tell us the progression of your career and now how you ended up working in the bike industry.
Yeah, so it all started from just reaching out to originally Rocky Mountain, and it all started with me breaking stuff and needing warranty. From there, went to Santa Cruz, and then we got signed on to Mongoose. It's only 3 years after I switched over to GT, and that was kind of when YouTube was coming around. I'm sure something you guys are familiar with.
No, what's that?
Never heard of it.
Is that Netflix?
No, to be sponsored back in the day, we would send DVDs that we would burn and mail it to our sponsors.
Yeah.
And then YouTube came around and we're like, wait a minute, we don't have to send DVDs anymore. That was just really the beginning of what YouTube was. And originally we thought it was just a place to put a video, but it's way more than that now, I was a pro rider, but I was never the best rider, and I knew that right away. But I knew I loved the sport, and I wanted to make a difference in the sport. And I figured that I could make a bigger impact in the sport off the bike. Well, obviously I ride for fun, but while working for a brand, I felt like I could make a bigger difference. So I decided in 2012 to join the GT marketing team. It's a big passion of mine. I love riding, and I love getting new people into riding.
To be successful in the mountain biking industry, how important is it to be good at riding versus just being passionate about the sport and sharing your love?
There's always going to be someone better than you. Always. If that's the pressure you're going to put on yourself, you'll be disappointed pretty quickly. If you define success as being able to do a certain trick, I don't know if that's necessarily success. I think there's more to riding than that. It's the places that the bikes will take you. It's the people that bikes introduce you to. And there's so much more to riding than just heel clickers.
That's a good quote.
Yeah.
What would you say was the pinnacle of your professional riding career?
I wouldn't say there was necessarily a peak, but the best years were for sure like 2007 to 2000, I guess right up until I stopped riding. But I met one of my biggest mentors was like Eric Carter, like being able to travel around with him and learn from him, or like Mick Hanna. And I still talk to them and keep in touch with them, and they're amazing people. And those are real legends. And those are the guys who shape the sport into what it is today. So I would say being able to rub shoulders with guys like that was pretty damn cool.
Was there a moment in which you had felt like you made it?
I don't know. I'm always about like continuous improvement and like learning forever. I don't know if necessarily I'm aiming for that feeling, or I don't know if I'm looking to feel that feeling. I'm always just open to learning new things and new possibilities and new opportunities. So I think, adapting, like you said, is so important. So I don't feel like I've made it.
Let's talk about your injury. Let's talk about January 6th.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so January 6th, 2017, during the day I noticed my neck was a little stiff, nothing really crazy. So I went out for dinner with friends at 8 o'clock. And by that time, I was just rubbing my neck the whole time at dinner, and I couldn't really make eye contact with people at the table or really hold a conversation. And so people started noticing, my friends started noticing that something was a little weird. And I thought it was weird too, but at the time I was 29 and indestructible, and I've never had anything happen where things change that quick. And so I decided to go home an hour later, and we had agreed that I'd go to the hospital eventually. But it was January, I was in nice clothes, so I was gonna get changed before I went to the hospital because I'd probably spend the night there. And I went home to change, and I noticed how cold my arms and legs were. And continuing to justify things in my head, I was like, it's January, that's probably why I'm cold. So I jumped in bed, and I was in there for about 15 minutes, and I put my clothes in the dryer to warm it up. And in the 15 minutes, the cold arms and legs went to heavy to fully numb. And I couldn't believe how fast things were changing. And when you fall asleep on your arm, when you're asleep, it was like that, but over my whole body. And I could not believe that I was moving my hands. And so I started tapping my fingers, and all of a sudden my left side stopped. And so in my head, I thought I was having a stroke. And so from bed, I quickly realized that, I probably wasn't going to be able to take myself to the hospital. So I jumped up, realizing that I had locked my front door on the way in, then I had to call 911. Grabbed my phone, jumped up, and when I jumped up, I guess the full burst had happened. And what had happened was a blood vessel burst in my neck and basically choked off my spinal cord. So over 70% of my spinal cord was compressed. So there was very little left at C3 and C4, so right in the back of my neck. And from there, I was instantly paralyzed. Luckily, I had my phone in my hand, but I was unable to move my hand from that point on. And I looked up, and it was just out of reach of my arm. It had just fallen, and luckily it was face up. And I was sitting there and catching my breath, and actually C3 innervates your diaphragm, and it supports your breathing as well. So what I didn't know was that my lung was operating at like pretty much half capacity at that point, which explains why I wasn't able to yell. And one of the first things that I realized when I couldn't move was I was like, oh, maybe I'll just yell my way out of this. Try to yell for help, and a whisper came out, and I was like, something was weird, something was wrong. And a lot of things go through your head, and it was, at no point was it a real panic, because I felt like all I had was time, and it was pretty peaceful. Like, I wasn't in pain. I was trying to understand what was happening in my body, and I realized that at this moment in time, although I couldn't move, I'm safe. So I started thinking of how I was going to get myself out of there. And that initial peace that I had, because I thought, I was like, I have all the time in the world. All I have to do is to get to that phone. And then I realized my phone battery was going to die in about 3 hours. And so I was like, well, I don't have all the time in the world, but I still have 3 hours to get to my phone. And it was about a foot that I had to crawl. I looked up, and it didn't even really question it. All I could use was my chin, so I crawled to my phone using my chin. And when I got there, I unlocked it with my tongue and then used Siri to call 911. And that was a wild one. So from there, I was taken to VGH, which is where our BC spine ward is, and it did an emergency laminectomy, and so they removed the back of my lamina at C3 and C4, the pointy parts of your spine, and they drained my the bleed around my spinal cord. So they knew when they drained my spine that it was going to swell, and if they left the bone in there, that it would hit and possibly do more damage. So they operated on me at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I had high expectations, going to the surgery, I was mentally all there. And going into the surgery, I always thought that coming out, when I would wake up from the surgery, that I would just be able to stand and walk away from this. And so morning came around, and I woke up in the ICU, and that wasn't the case. And that was a hard one. And I remember breaking down pretty good because I was so disappointed. And that was kind of when everything got real. And I, even before the doctors told me how the rest of my life might look like, I already could kind of see that I may be living with a disability, for the rest of my life. So that was hard. And then about 2 weeks later, we started seeing incremental improvement. So by the second week, my wrist could move a little bit and my arm could move a little bit, and I could lift my knee a tiny bit. And the doctors say, Andrew, we really look at, three numbers, the first 48 hours, 2 weeks, and 6 months. So 48 hours, a lot of people who will walk after paralysis will show a lot of their recovery in the 48 hours. And not just wrist and a little bit of leg, they'll show a lot of their recovery. And 2 weeks was where I was at, and they're like, well, we see that you're improving every day, and not to take away from the positive energy in this room, it takes a lot of coordination to walk. And there's a lot of people, living in wheelchairs who actually can stand up, and they just can't walk longer distances. So basically they grade spinal cord injuries on a scale of A to E. A is a complete sever, B is an incomplete injury, and with me, I was unable to move my arms or legs. And so that's about as bad as it gets without having a full sever. And they say most people with spinal cord injuries make 1-letter grading improvement in their lifetime. So even a person with a complete sever will possibly, move their arms eventually. And for me, they expected me to upgrade to a C, which would have given me some arm movement. That was their expectation for me. And they said, you should probably prepare for a different lifestyle. That was hard for me to believe, and I never thought that it would all happen this way, I wasn't doing anything, and that was one thing that I think that really did help me, was that because there was no incident where, I didn't get into an accident or something didn't hit me or whatever. I was able to stay positive and maybe a little naive on the severity of my injury. And I think I kind of thought of it like mountain biking. And I had someone come in about a month into my recovery. His name's Mike Shaw, and he's a walking quad. And when I saw him walk and when I could talk to him about our experiences, and there were so many similarities. And he actually has a great documentary on Red Bull TV, and I watched that a lot. And seeing is believing. And like when you're riding mountain bikes, your buddy goes and guinea pigs something. You're like, if he can do that, like I can do that. When I could see him, I always thought maybe in a year that I would maybe be able to stand and walk. When I saw him, I was like, man, I'm going to be sprinting in a year. And him coming and visiting me, just, I could ask him questions that, we don't really ask doctors. And it was just a much more personal relationship rather than this like clinical experience. So that helped a lot.
At what point did you think, I can get through this, I'm determined to get better, I'm gonna sprint, I'm gonna walk, I'm gonna ride my bike again?
Well, like we're really positive, and like we celebrated every little gain. And I think that was one of the things that really worked well for us, was celebrating the small gains. I looked at the way I used to learn tricks, or still like learn a new task. You break a daunting task into tiny little bits that you can manage. And when you add up those bits over time, you've actually come quite a long way. So with a mild gaze into the future, focusing on what's in front of you and what you can do, and celebrating every little bit of it, because it was everything that I had lost. And to be honest, anything that I gained was so awesome, because it was something that I didn't think I was going to get back anyways. I had lost all of it, all the independence. I couldn't feed myself. Your day-to-day tasks, I had to have help for every little bit of that.
Was that an outlook on life that you had before your injury? Or
No.
did you have to adopt this new mindset?
I'd like to say that like I was a pretty optimistic and positive person to start with, but I think one big takeaway from this was definitely positive thinking and gratitude. I'm gonna read you guys a message that Mike sent me, and this I'll never forget. Yo, Andrew, we don't know each other, but I've heard a lot about you. I'm glad you added me on Facebook. I heard you just got inducted into the most elite club in the world, the Spinal Cord Injury Club. You're gonna get to meet and be exposed to some of the most incredible people. Although it doesn't feel like a gift, there are gifts that reveal themselves as time goes on. No one wants an invitation to this club. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But there are good things that can come from it, depending on how you look at it. If you ever want to connect, chat, ask questions, vent, whatever, I'm all ears. We're all in it together, bro. From one member of the club to another, we got each other's back. And I think the line that resonates with me the most here is, although it doesn't feel like a gift, there are gifts that reveal themselves as time goes on. And I tell people that, this really is the worst experience of my life. So in that sense, I'm super grateful, and definitely every day from that point on forward, I think even it was pretty easy to be grateful at first, because you're in the hospital's a pretty gnarly place, and I quickly realized in the spine ward that my injury wasn't even the worst injury. There was people that had it much worse than I did. And so right away, it was pretty easy to be grateful. But I think the biggest things from this is just gratitude and positivity.
Jason and I came and visited you a number of times at GF Strong. Looked like you had really good care there.
Yeah, GF Strong is the rehab facility that really gave me my life back. And so the tone when you went from the hospital to the rehab center was completely different, where the hospital was basically your recovery is done when you leave the hospital. And when we went to GF Strong, it was like your recovery is just starting now, and there's so much more you can do, and you'll change and heal for the rest of your life. So already the energy there was amazing, and you have access to occupational therapists, physiotherapists. If you want to talk to someone, there's someone to talk to you, and just amazing staff that take care of you day to day. it wasn't just one person really working with me. I had so many people. I literally had friends that were professionals in their own field really come and help me. Everyone from my friend Maddie, who helped me with my acupuncture, like all my physio friends, Chelsea, Sarah, Chelsea's mom, who's a world-renowned physio, not to mention all the GF Strong staff, like Nigel, Christine, like everyone. It was so incredible. Yeah, the 100 days in there, I'll never forget, all the nurses that literally did everything for me every day. I owe my life to every one of those people. And here I am now at the wheel of Gnar in a forest that's unfortunately not wheelchair accessible.
What were some of those little things that you realized you had been taking for granted?
Well, it's like the simple things too, like you try having your parents answer your text messages for even a day. Try an hour and see what that's like. That really strains your relationship with your parents. But just the day-to-day stuff, literally one of the first things that they taught me was to do this, right? Because that's the first step of walking, is to be able to stand up. Didn't even trust me to swallow my own food in the beginning because they thought my muscles were compromised and that I might be sending food into my lungs. It's everything. Like literally everything I had to relearn. I remember one of the first things when I could finally grip a pencil, I wrote, and my mom broke down, and I wrote "Hi Mom," and it was just like in the worst chicken scratch I could ever write, and I was like, that's so cool, I can write again. And I always thought the first of everything, whether it was writing, walking, or whatever, would be glamorous, and that there would be like fireworks, confetti, and like you're running across the finish line. It was not like that. The first of everything is quite anticlimactic. And first step I took, I didn't even realize I was taking a step because I was like, it was basically a big wobble, and I had traveled the distance, and I was like, I think I may have just walked.
You had doctors telling you that you'd never walk again. Was there a moment when you knew that they were wrong and you were gonna walk?
I always respected their opinion, and like, they're talking from statistics, right? I never really took it personally, although like, when I was first told that, I was like, you just met me a few weeks ago. And already my injury itself was quite rare. To have a spinal cord injury like this, I think the chances are like 0.01 of like 100,000 spinal cord injuries. So it's already a pretty rare case to start with. When I went into GF Strong, I already had the mindset that I wanted to walk. Did I know I was gonna walk out of there in 100 days? I never imagined that. My goals were always to walk, and I know GF Strong eventually changed my goal to walk out by the time, I think it's like 60 days or something like that. They changed my goal, and they're like, we think you're gonna walk out of here. And so, yeah, it was just really taking it day by day, just maximizing your days. And I really took it like it was my job, and it was my job to get my life back. And I wasn't gonna half-ass my time there and the resources that I had there, all the therapists that were working so hard to give me everything I could.
After 100 days, you walk out, and then what?
So I got to move home after 100 days. So my therapy at GF Strong still went on for another 4 or 6 weeks or something like that, I feel like, maybe just under a month. And after my last day of therapy at GF Strong, I actually took my first trip away, and that was at the Whistler Bike Park opening. So that was pretty special. I knew in my head that I would be able to ride a bike because my balance, like I could walk, right? So I was like, riding is like second nature for me. So I knew that I could ride, and I didn't want to rush it. And so even starting that June, I was able to ride my road bike again. And so I rode my road bike until about August, and then I think by that time I had done 2 runs, which one of them was a half marathon. So I had run a half marathon, and I came to Crankworks that first year of my recovery, and I was on such a high. I was like, I'm gonna mountain bike. And I got on my mountain bike and we rode Crank It Up, and I swear to God, the bike rode me. I was stronger on one side, and so every time I would hit a jump, I would veer to the left because I was stronger on the right side. And then I fell and I realized, okay, this is not safe. This is like I got to pull it back here. So I actually stopped riding mountain bikes for a good 6 months, I think, until March the year after. And I rode Crankworks Rotorua, and me and Jeff Gulovich, we went for a ride, and I started realizing that I felt a lot different than even 6 months prior. And it's so crazy because I've never had an injury that you change for so long, you know, like sprains, broken bones, whatever, you name it. Most things heal within a certain amount of time, right? And I'm a year and a half out and I'm still getting stronger and still changing. I think I'm always trying to get better at riding bikes. Although I'm not 100%, like from a day-to-day task, like I don't really struggle with anything, you know, like maybe that first year I struggled to like open jars.
Yeah.
And my grip strength wasn't as good. But like, man, I'm riding the bike park now. I'm pretty normal, I guess.
Something that we want to know. What is in the Andrew Cho starter kit?
Probably a vodka soda. Those are really nice. Thirst quenching.
From where? What place makes the best vodka soda?
I make the best vodka soda.
From home.
Yes,
Homemade.
exactly. A bike. Snowboard. A phone. That's pretty key.
Yep.
MacBook. I don't know. It's a pretty simple guy.
Bike, phone.
Bike, phone. Like, yeah, just like
Vodka soda.
vodka soda.
What more do you need? What more do you need? What more do you need? Sun's getting pretty harsh here. We're getting blown out, so I think this is a good time to play a game. Would you like to play a game?
I'm here for the game.
We got a quick game of fill in the blanks here. We're gonna put 30 seconds on the clock. Short little expressions, the blanks at the end. Fill in as many as you can get in 30 seconds.
You ready?
Let's
ready?
go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Claw is the,
Law.
shred the,
Gnar.
ride or,
Die.
no dig no,
Ride.
Norb's got,
Robbed.
the fro,
Riders.
super,
Heroes.
Ferda,
Girls.
drop two,
The knees.
send or be,
Sent.
mahalo,
My dude.
samurai pizza,
Cat.
ride don't,
Slide.
I only ride,
Park.
we need more,
Girls.
fast as,
That's all we got. Oh my God. That was a new record. That was quick.
I think there was one wrong one in there.
I got one wrong.
Drop to flat.
Oh, yeah.
Drop to your knees. What a guy.
Yeah. That was the
over
first
here.
thing that came to your mind.
It's like dropped your mind.
All right.
Would you like to spin the wheel?
I'd love to spin the wheel.
We got one red slice of doom for you to fill in with whatever you like. All right. Oh geez. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right.
All right.
Double JMOs at the warehouse.
Okay.
Is there a trail there?
To be honest, well, yeah, you just walk there.
Okay.
I would rather do that than ride Goat Scully.
All right. Give it a spin. Be gentle. There's been.
You know, you can give it a good
Accidents.
spin, but let's not have a Fabio spin on that. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Shred the wheel of Gnar, my dude.
That was a nice spin. Oh.
Oh my.
Oh God. No.
Oh, no.
my God.
Oh yes,
Oh,
yes. We're good. We're good.
We're going
drop
drop
it,
Yeah.
quick.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
I'm so happy we're not drinking JMOs.
Where did you put it?
Any idea how many days since your accident? At this point?
About 500 something days.
500 days. And you're rocking clips.
Ride or
Die. Drop two.
your knees, obviously. The only way to drop.
Why you lead us, man?
Oh, very nice inside line there, sir. Woo. Oh. Whoa.
Drop it in. Drop it in. 3, 2, 1. Follow my deeds.
Holy heck, dude.
And that's a wrap.